I feel like he's a young version of Patrick Mahomes.
The kid is as can't miss gets.
I love Caleb. He is outrageously talented.
The issue with Caleb Williams has nothing to do with his actual skill set or his arm strength or even his intangibles as a passer in a league that sometimes will eat up very good collegiate quarterbacks for breakfast and leave us all wondering exactly what happened. Now, the issue with Caleb Williams is far greater and hasn't been seen in the NFL in a very long time. Caleb Williams doesn't want to be a Chicago Bear. Now, of course, if you've seen this before, it's probably from the very kind of off-the-cuff remark from Fox Sports' Colin Cowherd when he said,
There's some concerns here that Dad's a little too involved. Now, dads are very, very involved in high school and college quarterbacking. So that's just part of the new world we live in. But I still contend, you're going to think I'm nuts here. I do think it's possible that Washington trades up and Chicago allows Washington to trade up because Caleb and his group do not want to go to Chicago.
To which Caleb Williams' camp quickly called Colin back the next day and made him correct his statement where he went ahead and said this.
So I got a call from the Caleb Williams camp, and they went, whoa, Colin, we don't want to be painted as anti-Chicago, and we don't want to be painted as anti-Bear. And they made it clear to me that they said, listen, we don't want to go to a city that doesn't care.
Okay, Thomas, so that settles it. He does want to be a Chicago Bear. Well, not necessarily, because no one's talking about the actual clip on ESPN Radio in Chicago where Cowherd went back on and further clarified his Caleb Williams and anti-Chicago take.
I've heard some concerns from them. Somebody called and said, hey, we just don't want to be viewed as anti-Chicago. And they said, we do think there's a way to win quickly there, and it's the Houston way. Defensive coach, couple of weapons, cap space. And he said he thinks the defense is actually going to be really, really good. So he follows it. But I think, the things I had heard early is his dad's a big personality, strong personality, big opinions, good guy. Don't know him well, know Caleb better. And Caleb doesn't always agree with him, but he's a dad. And Eli Manning's dad and John Elway's dad. They're concerned. But Caleb's like, hey, man, Chicago's a big city. I love their passion. I don't want to go somewhere that doesn't care, where they're tarping off the upper deck. Like, I want to go somewhere where there's massive pressure and I've got to be great. And that's how he thinks.
Now, let's be real here. Caleb Williams is a smart kid. He's seen what the wrong situation can do to a top quarterback pick, like, say, Sam Darnold or Carson Wentz. But he's also seen what the right situation can do for guys like Josh Allen or even former Alabama and Oklahoma quarterback Jalen Hurts. Will the place that drafts you put you in a position to actually win, to actually be successful, or are you going to have to overcome serious internal dysfunction in order to even have a shot at playing at a high level for multiple years, let alone one or two? And remember, just because most people view Caleb Williams as a generational talent doesn't mean he's not perfect. I mean, there are still plenty of question marks that Darren Orlovsky, for instance, pointed out to Dan Patrick just last month.
If we find who are the last 4 or 5 quarterbacks, and I've been swayed in this world, to be honest, that were not the biggest guys and went early. So Baker Mayfield, he's kind of had this roller coaster of a career. I'm a Baker guy, but he hasn't played the number 1 pick. Kyler Murray, Bryce Young, obviously this year. So some of the smaller stature guys, they haven't necessarily excelled.
But that right there is still very much nitpicking. The majority of people believe Caleb Williams is one of the most generational, best talents we've seen at quarterback to come out of the NFL draft in a very, very long time. But I think the crazy part is the number 1 overall pick refusing to be drafted is a very rare thing. It's only happened for a couple of specific teams and specific quarterbacks. Think back to John Elway with the Denver Broncos, and of course Eli Manning famously with the whole Chargers situation. But either way, it's extremely rare. If Caleb privately still does not want to go to Chicago due to their extensive history of ruining top quarterback prospects, the Bears could find themselves with one hand basically tied behind their back. So what happens now? Well, I guess cue the Kliff Kingsbury news over the weekend. Kliff is now signed with the Washington Commanders to be their new offensive coordinator, joining newly hired head coach Dan Quinn. Commanders also have the number 2 overall draft pick, brand new ownership, cap space heaven, and yeah, they just need a quarterback too. Now, the quarterback they want posted this congratulatory story on his Instagram just minutes after Kingsbury was announced to Washington. Oh, and the link between Kliff Kingsbury and Caleb Williams? Well, Kingsbury was on the USC staff this year as an offensive assistant, a move that Caleb Williams himself praised when it happened just a couple of months ago.
It was cool. He kind of knows the offense in a way. They're all from the same coaching tree, and so it was cool. Can't wait to get him here and learn from him because dreams and goals and being at the next level. He's done it at the highest level of these coaching, so being able to learn from him and go on this run and get all the information from him.
But if Washington actually wants to move up one draft spot, go from number 2 up to number 1, it's going to cost them an arm and a leg, but not nearly as much as you'd probably think. I mean, look at NBC Sports Chicago suggesting Chicago gets the number 2 overall draft pick, number 40 overall, plus a first-round draft pick in both 2025 and 2026. But here's where it actually gets interesting. Let's say Caleb does, in fact, want to go elsewhere besides Chicago. Of course, the Bears hand have to obviously trade the number 1 overall draft pick, but if he becomes suddenly available on the trade block, every team without a star quarterback currently on their roster would run to their phones, pick that sucker up, and give Chicago at least a phone call, right? For example, I mean, look at this article from Denver reporter Tommy Pauline just a couple of days ago after the Senior Bowl where he said, quote, Sean Payton wants one of the top passers, Caleb Williams, Drake May, or Jaden Daniels. I spoke at length about this with several people, including longtime Denver Bronco insider Cecil Lammey, a radio and television personality from the city, as well as a writer at denversports.com. I was able to confirm the Broncos are interested in moving up for their quarterback of the future. Now pair that with a multitude of other reports saying that Caleb Williams is the quarterback Denver has targeted, going from number 12 all the way to number 1 overall, plus the Washington rumor from 2 to 1, and throw in teams like the Las Vegas Raiders and potentially more. There are a lot of suitors out there who would love to get their hands on number 13. But I guess in the end, Chicago could just turn things around and go, we don't care, Caleb. Like, what are you going to do? We're going to draft you. You're going to come to Chicago. You're going to be under contract. You're going to play and be a Bear. And you're going to turn this franchise that has a just atrocious history at drafting quarterbacks into one of the premier overall destinations in free agency and one of the best, hopefully, teams in the NFC. But with at least, 4, maybe 5 quarterbacks in total going in the first round, if Chicago is even 1% hesitant that Caleb Williams doesn't want to actually go there, like Colin Cowherd told us at the beginning of the show, there's a chance they could just, hey, we'll take a king's ransom, we'll trade back, and you could see a monumental trade from one of the 3 teams I just mentioned all the way up to number 1, completely shocking the draft world, changing up April's overall first-round selections, and making the Chicago Bears have to take somebody else to be their quarterback of the future. What do you guys think? Will Caleb Williams be taken number 1 overall by Chicago or somebody else? Let me know who you think it is down below right now.